Okay, the next thing we're going to do on our music player is we're going to change how we talk to the database. Right now where am I at? Here's the music database. Here's our file, and I just made a copy of it, so if I mess this up royally, I have something to go back on. It's a kind of a good practice sometimes. But here's our Livecode file. Here's our music database, and I'll show you these images I added later. But right now we're going to do how we talk to the database. Everything works fine. We can click on this button and it asks us to look for a database. The problem is this is not a good way of doing this. I just put this up here to show you how to talk to the computer. But a better way of doing it is to handle all of this inside of a pre-open stack function. Pre-open stack gets run before your program opens. In other words, if it's not open and I double click on this file, before it appears, it runs whatever code is inside of this function. And we're going to tell it to look for a database. Now I want to we're also going to build a file called config, and it's going to reside right inside the same folder as our music player sits in. So I'm going to show you how to get that. How do I get this directory right here? I'm going to bring up what's called a message box, and it's probably good to know how to run this thing anyways. Message box is a place where you can run one-liner codes, and they just display right in this window right here. So I'm going to say put the file name of this stack. And you can see when I call the file name of this stack, it gives me an entire path to and including the name of this stack file right there. So what I want to do is call the file name, and then I want to get rid of music player, and that means I have a path to this directory. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll say put the file name of this stack into config path, set the item del to and we'll just say slash. Actually, we'll do, I think it would work either way, but we're going to use / because, well, I don't know if I can explain it in item delimiter to you yet either. Maybe I have. I can't remember. But anyways, what item delimiter does is take whatever string you have, whatever you're talking about, whatever variable, string or file or whatever, and it delimits, it separates everything based on what your item delimiter is set at. And so in this case, it's going to say C:/ I think it says users / M in Bowden / desktop. You see, this is our path to our file. Well, I want to separate this whole string out by the /. So this would be item 1, then this would be item 2, this would be item 3, 4, and so on. If that makes any sense. Alright, so now that we have that, I want to say delete last item of config path. Okay, so now my config path is going to read C drive, users, M and Bowden, desktop, Livecode music player, and then nothing. Alright? Because I deleted out musicplayer.livecode off of it. So that's my config path. So I want to say put URL, and I think we've already talked about the URL function, but the URL function grabs a file and puts it into a variable for you that you can use in Livecode. And you have to tell it what type of file you're looking up, and this is just a normal file, text file. So we use the keyword file and colon, and then we're going to append our path on there, config path, and then we're going to config our tie on to the end of that a / and config dot, and we'll just say ini. You can. It's going to be a text file what we're dealing with, normal text file, but we can give it whatever extension we want it to have. You just have to remember that extension. Whoops. Into the config. Okay, so if there were a file here called config.ini, whatever its contents, the text of its contents would be included in or put into this variable right here. You'll see in a moment how this works. Now I want to, what we're going to have in the config is simply a path. We're going to have this text right here in that file. And so we're going to set the database location of this stack to the config. All right. Now, Livecode has what's called, and it's really cool, if you go to inspector for any element, and right now we're looking at the whole stack, and I go onto this custom, looks like a little cylinder type thing, and you have what's called custom properties, and you have custom keys. It's actually an array is what it is, but we're going to be dealing with our custom keys here, and I can add an element. Okay, so I can add whatever I want. I can add a the variable name would be called test, and the value of that variable name would be 1. Okay, so test is equal to 1. When I go over here in my code and I say set the database location, the keyword the, space, and then the name of the variable of whatever element I'm talking about. In this case, I'm talking about the stack. When I set that, it's going to create another one of these elements called database location, and it's going to give it a value of whatever I put into it right here. And that can be used then almost like a global variable within my program. I can always go back and call the database location of this stack. So we're going to set that at the very beginning to what we want it, what this config file says. Obviously there's no config file here. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. I'm going to get rid of this test because I don't want it. It was just to show you. Get rid of that. So I have no custom keys in my stack at the moment. So that sets this for the very beginning. Now what I want to do is put a button. I want to change this button. Let's open up the inspector. Let's even let's change it to say settings. Get rid of this. Okay, so it just says settings now, and we can always change the what do you call it? We can get rid of this. We can always change the icon of this later to like a gearbox or something. I don't know. But right now we're just going to leave it like that. And let's change the code for that button. Now the code has been to choose a music location. I still want to choose a music location. Actually, you know what? We should just leave this called music location. Okay, we're choosing a music location. That's fine. And if it's empty, in other words, I pushed cancel, I want to exit my mouse up, that's fine. Now, instead of setting the label of me to that, I want to put the, let's see here, the file, I want to do the same thing I did over here. Put the file name and all of this stuff. I'm going to copy and paste it. Okay, so I'm going to go right in and find this config file. All right, I'm going to open up the config file, and I'm going to, instead of doing this, I'm going to put it. I'm going to put it into URL file config path config.ini. So what this will do, this line of code, I've already populated the variable it by choosing a location. And it's going to go here and find the path, and it's going to do this line. It's going to put whatever my path was that I chose, that text, it's a string, and it's a path to this folder. It's going to put that as a text into a file called config.ini in this directory. If that file does not exist, it will create it and then populate it for us. Okay, so let's not populate music right now, just because it's probably going to throw an error because we have other things to change too. So let's try it here. Get rid of this. I choose music location. I go to music database, Livecode music player, music database, and I say select folder. And you see how it built us a config file. Oops, right there. Now if I go in here and I edit this with Notepad, I bring it up, and all that's in this file is my path that I just chose. Pretty cool. Okay, so now I have a config wide open there. But if I go back to my stack music player, I still don't have this thing set right there. It's not, I don't have anything set right there. So I need to do that. Probably be a good thing. Let's just do it at the same time. I set the database location of this stack to, instead of the config, I need to set it to it. Okay, so I'm putting it into that file, plus I'm setting this variable. Let's try it again. I want to click music database, select folder. Okay, it updated this. Of course, it didn't change anything. But now you see that I have in my stack a new element called database location, and I have that same text right there. Good, so that essentially will be run every time I open up the program. It's going to grab this file, read it, and then put that variable right in there. So now let's go to populate music. The only thing we have to change here is put the label of button music location into database folder. That needs to change. The database location of this stack into database folder. All right. Now let's go back to here and populate music. Now it will populate music. Let's try it again. Music database. My database got populated. Now again, we need to go change every one of these fields because it's not going to look in the right place. So let's code this field. And right now it's putting the label of button music location, and that I want to change this to the database location of this stack. I think that will take care of that one. Let's before I do that, copy that. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing on this one. And the same thing on this one. Good. The other thing I wanted to do, well, let's test this out and see if it works. and click on Doc Watson, and it brings up the best of Doc Watson. Bring up Doyle Austin. It does exactly what I want it to. Here, I push play. Great. So it's starting to work. Problem I had was if I click, say I click stop, and go here and push play, it just starts that same song back up because I didn't reset this. When I clicked here, I didn't reset the file name of my player. So whenever I click on this field or in this field, I want to set that to empty. Alright, well, not necessarily empty. If I click here, I want to put it on number 1 automatically. So let's do that. Let's go back to the artist. Actually, go back to songs for a minute. I'm setting the file name. So that's what I want to do. Go back to artists. At the end of this, I put empty into albums. I put empty into songs. And then I set the file name of player music to empty. Okay, so when I click here, obviously this goes empty, so I don't want anything in my player. There's no song selected. So let's try it. He Lives in Me. Let's play He Lives in Me. Now as soon as I click over here, it stopped the music. That's exactly what we wanted. On albums, I'm putting the songs into field songs, and let's see, I want to put, this is going to be a little more in depth here. Okay, so I already have album path, correct. And I put the songs. Okay, let's grab, put highlighted line. Actually put this. Set the file name of player music to, and I'll say the album path, and we'll be doing a / and line 1 of field songs into the selected song. Okay, so it's going to change the file name, so it's going to stop the music, but automatically the first song will be queued, ready to play. So let's try clicking on Doyle Lawson, clicking on He Lives in Me, and just there I had an error. Oh, since I copied and pasted that, I don't need that on the end. That makes sense. Okay, let's try it again. Doyle Lawson, He Lives in Me. Now, when I push play, it should play He Lives in Me. And it does. Let's click on Sing Me a Song About Jesus. It should play Little Star. It does. Let's click here. Should play Calling to That Other Shore. Great. Alright, so I think we got that taken care of. Good. I think that's all I wanted to do. Let's make sure it's going to find our music location with no problems. So let's go here and save this. Save everything and exit out of it. Now I'm going to open up our music player again, And what it should do, before we even see the music player pop up, it'll read this file and populate the music location. Okay, so let's look at Inspector. And the music location is correct. Alright, the other thing we wanted to do, and I just now thought of it when it opened up, is on pre-open stack, we want to also down here populate music off the bat. So it just left it at where we had left off last time, but we want to populate a clean slate every time we open it. Let's try it again. There we go. Now I'm ready to start playing music.
As I went down in the valley to pray.
Alright, so hopefully this made sense and it's all clear as mud. And I'll see you on the next video.